Hello the internet, and welcome to another CNRL Library Innovation Studio home workshop where we show you how to grow your own veggie patch. And today is a huge day. We have so much to put in the garden today. We've got spinach, we've got lettuce, we've got zucchinis, tomatoes, cucumbers, we've got lots of herbs, rosemary, parsley, basil, mint, coriander, oregano, chives and marigolds as well. Now this is going to be a great day for planting in the garden, and also if you're planting in pots. We're going to cover them both today. It's very exciting. All you're going to need to do this workshop is a spoon, a bucket and a pen and paper, because we need to plan where to put these plants. We can't just put them any old place in the veggie patch. We're going to have to be a little bit careful about where we put them. Some are going to throw too much shade on others. Some plants don't like even being next to each other, and we're going to work that all out right now. Let's get digging. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn the soil over a bit. It's not going to be as intense as when we did our carrots and when we did our beetroots, because none of these are root vegetables. We just need to disturb the soil a bit, loosen it up to make sure we can plant easily. And while you're at it, if you see any grass or any other weeds, let's get that out now. I'm going to do the whole patch where we haven't already planted anything. If you're finding the ground hard going, put water on it to soften it up a bit and come back to it in about half an hour. Don't drain it too much, otherwise you'll make it super heavy with water and it'll be almost as hard to dig. As I said before, we're not going too deep today, we're just loosening up the soil. That'll make it easier for us to get our seedlings into the ground and for the roots to establish themselves, but none of these are root vegetables, so they don't need to go deep down. Okay, that's all dug. Now, if you have any compost, now's the time to dig that in too, but you don't really need it. If your beans have grown anything like my beans have grown, that means your soil is fine. If you have fertilizer, don't put that in yet, because it can damage the roots of young seedlings. So the next thing we need to do is plan where we're going to put our plants. We have to take into account what plants like the shade, what plants like full sun, and which plants don't like being together or maybe benefit from being together. So what I've got, I have a row of carrots down the front, I have a row of beetroot just behind that, I have a big square in the middle, which is my bean pole. Now, also at the back you may have noticed I've got some other plants coming up which we haven't talked about before. These are actually extra sunflower seeds I had left over when I did my seedlings. I just thought, what the heck, I'm going to put them straight into the ground, and I clean forgot about them. Okay, now it's important to remember the reason why we put sunflowers pertwee there at the back is because our bean pole is going to throw shade in this direction mostly, and this direction a bit, because the sun is rising down here where our carrots and beets are. So shady plants that like the shade are going to go at the back, and plants that like the sun are going to go at the front and along the sides. Anything we can't fit in can go into pots that can go all the way around the back edge, like that. Okay, now what to plant where? Cucumbers like the shade, so does lettuce and spinach, so I'll put those behind the bean pole where they'll get a bit of shade in the day. That'll help stop them dry out in the hot sun through our Australian summer. I have parsley and coriander. They apparently go very well with carrots, so there's no reason not to put those close together. I'll work that out on my map. Tomatoes and rosemary shouldn't go together for some reason, so I'll keep those apart. Now, another thing with companion planting, it isn't just about whether they encourage growth or inhibit growth. Some of them are very good at keeping certain insects away. For instance, I'm going to plant marigold flowers. They're no good to eat. They look okay, but they are fantastic for keeping away shield bugs. I'm going to keep those near my tomatoes. They suffer quite badly from shield bugs getting into the fruit. My chives are going to go into a pot, and they're super hardy. Nothing seems to bother chives. They can go just about anywhere. Now the zucchini's interesting. It doesn't have much of a problem with plants in terms of putting them off with chemicals, and doesn't have too much trouble with insects that we aren't already going to work out with our marigolds. But zucchini plants do grow quite big and tall, so we don't want to put it anywhere where it's going to throw shade on plants that don't want shade. So I think I'm going to put it along the right-hand side of my beans. That way it'll throw a little extra shade on the lettuce and not worry anything else like my carrots and beetroots. There's lots of information you can find on this if you're growing different plants to the plants I've grown today. Okay, our plan's looking pretty good. Let's get planting. Once you've sorted out your paper plan, it's not a bad idea just to get the pots and the seedlings and put the plants where they actually are going to go, so your little paper plan doesn't blow away. Keep it handy in case you need to refer to it, but this is a great way to speed things up and get things clear in your head as to how everything's going to fit in. Now, you may have noticed that I've been growing a lot of stuff from seed, but today I also have a lot of stuff that I've clearly purchased. That's fine. Not everything that's grown from seed is going to work out, and you can't always find everything you want. There's no shame in doing that. So a lot of what I'm going to plant today is seedlings that have come from the shops, and we'll show you how to do that. It's pretty much the same. So dig your hole, don't throw the dirt away because you're going to want to put a fair bit of this back around the plant to support it. You can see if it's the right height by putting the pot in. Oh, look at that big stone, get rid of that. give it a bit of a squeeze and see if you can get it out. If not, saturate it a bit, and there we go. And that can just go in the ground straight like that. This earth is good earth, no problem having that. It's better than disturbing the roots too. And just gently push your soil back around, press down a little bit, you don't want to go too hard. That's looking great, and give it a drink. Now, I'm not going to show you how to do every single plant. They're all fairly much the same. Just follow your plan and put them in the right spots, give them a bit of space in between each other. Now, if you've bought seedlings from the shops, you'll often find they have instructions on the back. These are well worth having a look at because I know what they're talking about. This one's great. This one tells me that this spinach doesn't have to be picked and eaten as one big plant. I can take leaves off as I want. So that's good information to have. Now, some gardeners put this in the ground next to their plant so they can refer to it later on. That's not a terrible idea, but I recommend you don't do that. Keep your map that you made earlier on, put it in your logbook, and put this in your logbook with some sticky tape or write it down, because these can sometimes blow away or fade in the sun and then you won't know what's going on. Now, I'm going to put that in my logbook and then get on with planting the next plant. As you can see, your hands are going to get very messy in this workshop. That's okay. Okay, now we're going to talk about pots. Everything that we've covered in previous workshops and this one applies pretty much exactly the same as with pots. The only thing that's slightly different is you may want to put some rocks in the bottom of your pot if your plant needs good drainage. Otherwise, put in soil from your garden, mix in some compost if you want to, otherwise it's exactly the same. Now, we had a plan for our veggie patch. You're also going to need a plan for your pots. You don't want to have tomatoes in here growing nice and tall and then have this little pot below with some basil that's not going to get any light whatsoever. You need to work out the best place to put everything exactly the same as we talked about before. And the digging is much the same as well. You just make a hole, you put some water in. I should have got that. Make a hole, put some water in, get your seedling and pop it in just the same. This is going to be tomatoes. I have tomatoes in the ground in my veggie patch as well, but I love tomatoes. Can't have too many of them. Now, you don't want to put more than one thing, particularly in the same pot. This is all the resources it's ever going to have, so you don't want to overcrowd it with lots of different vegetables. I've got 2 tomato plants in here, and that's all I'm going to do. Now, if you have companion plants that you want to grow with your tomatoes, such as marigolds, which are extremely good for getting rid of all sorts of pests and nuisances because they really hate the smell, don't plant them in the same pot. Plant them in another pot and keep them nearby. We hope you enjoyed this gardening workshop. Please like, share and subscribe so you and others can join us on the next CNRL Library Innovation Studio online workshop. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all the usual places at Innovation Stew or hashtag Innovation Stew. And check the Home Workshops page on innovationstew.com.au for extra resources. See you next time and happy gardening. Okay, this is a very special plant. This is a herb called coriander. Every time I look at coriander, every time I chop it up and I eat it in a salad or cook it in a meal, I think of my good friend Claudia. She hates it. But the carrots love it, so it's good to plant them nearby.